Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have to say, the more I think about this storyline, the more I believe Willow may be standing on the edge of a disaster she can't even see coming. At first glance, it looks like she finally found a way out of the nightmare Drew has created in her life. Brennan is offering what sounds like the perfect solution, and for a brief moment, I can understand why Willow would feel hopeful. But after watching soaps for years, one thing I've learned is that whenever a plan seems too neat and too convenient, trouble is usually waiting just around the corner. What really caught my attention is the dramatic change in Willow's heart. Not long ago, she wanted Drew gone forever. She was angry, hurt, and desperate enough to imagine the worst possible outcome. Now she regrets those thoughts and seems determined to stop before things go any further. In a strange way, that makes this story even more emotional for me. Sometimes the hardest burden isn't what we do, it's realizing what we were capable of doing when we were pushed to our limits. Still, regret may not be enough to save her. Brennan claims he has uncovered evidence that Drew misused federal funds, and if that information is real, it could completely change the game. But here's where I start raising an eyebrow. Brennan is a smart man, maybe too smart. Down here in the South, folks sometimes say that if something sounds sweeter than apple pie on a Sunday afternoon, you'd better check what's baked inside. Brennan may genuinely have evidence against Drew, but I can't shake the feeling that he could also be telling Willow exactly what she wants to hear in order to keep the situation under control. Even if Brennan is being completely truthful, Willow's problems are far from over. She and Nina still have to keep their secret hidden while they wait for proof. That alone creates countless opportunities for everything to fall apart. One wrong move, one suspicious glance, one person asking the wrong question at the wrong time, and the entire scheme could come crashing down. Soap operas thrive on those moments when a carefully protected secret suddenly explodes into the open, and this situation feels like a ticking time bomb. What fascinates me most is the possibility that Drew may not stay powerless for much longer. If he wakes up fully aware of what has happened to him, I can't imagine him simply accepting it and moving on. This is a man with a bruised ego, wounded pride, and plenty of reasons to feel betrayed. That's a dangerous combination. In fact, I think the real story may begin the moment Drew realizes who was responsible for his suffering. And if that happens, Willow could find herself facing a level of revenge she never expected. Drew has already shown that he can be relentless when he feels wronged. If he believes Willow and Nina conspired against him, he may dedicate himself to destroying everything they care about. That's why I don't see Brennan's evidence as the finish line. I see it as the beginning of an even bigger storm. The way I see it, Willow may think she's moving closer to safety, but every step forward seems to place her on thinner ice. The secret is becoming harder to protect, the risks are multiplying, and Drew's eventual awakening could transform him into an enemy far more dangerous than anyone is prepared for. Right now, hope may be keeping Willow going, but from where I'm sitting, trouble is still very much alive and heading straight toward her. The more I sit and think about Willow's strategy, the more I find myself shaking my head. I understand why she believes she has finally found a way out of this mess. After everything that has happened, after all the fear, the secrecy, and the desperate decisions, she is clinging to the idea that leverage over Drew will solve her problems. In her mind, if Brennan can provide evidence that exposes Drew's misconduct, then Drew will have no choice but to keep quiet about what happened to him. He'll protect himself, protect his freedom, and avoid any situation that could send him back behind bars. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. In fact, if I were standing in Willow's shoes, exhausted and terrified that the truth could come out at any moment, I might be tempted to believe the same thing. But life has a funny way of proving that people don't always act logically when they're hurt. That's especially true when pride, humiliation, and betrayal are involved. Sometimes people become so consumed by anger that they stop caring about what they might lose. They focus only on making someone else pay. That's why I think Willow may be underestimating Drew in a very dangerous way. One thing that keeps coming back to me is the fact that Drew has lost control over nearly every aspect of his life. He has been manipulated, deceived, and placed in a vulnerable position by people he once trusted. Whether viewers sympathize with him or not, There is no denying that a man who wakes up and realizes his life has been turned upside down is not likely to simply shrug his shoulders and move on. Human nature doesn't work that way. What Willow seems to be counting on is fear. She believes Drew will be too afraid of prison to fight back. However, revenge doesn't always look like a courtroom battle. Revenge doesn't always involve exposing secrets to the police. Sometimes revenge is much quieter, much colder, and much more effective. If Drew truly wants to punish Willow, he doesn't need to reveal her actions immediately. In fact, revealing everything might be the least satisfying option from his perspective. Why send Willow to prison right away when he could slowly dismantle the life she has worked so hard to rebuild? I can imagine Drew deciding to attack her reputation first. Willow has spent years trying to be viewed as a caring mother, a dependable professional, and a respected member of her community. Those things matter to her. They are part of her identity. If Drew can create doubt around her character, even without revealing the full truth, he could start a chain reaction that damages everything she values. The thing about trust is that it takes years to build and only moments to destroy. Once questions begin circulating, people start looking at old situations differently. Friends become suspicious. Family members start asking uncomfortable questions. Suddenly, every decision Willow makes is examined under a microscope. Even if she isn't guilty of what people suspect, the damage can already be done. And then there's her career. I keep coming back to this because careers in Port Charles rarely survive major scandals untouched. If Drew decides to use his influence, his connections, or information he has gathered over time, Willow could find herself facing professional obstacles she never anticipated. Opportunities could disappear. Supporters could distance themselves. People who once stood firmly in her corner could suddenly become reluctant to defend her. What makes this possibility especially frightening is that Drew wouldn't even need to break any laws to make it happen. He could simply position events in a way that causes others to lose confidence in Willow. Sometimes a person's downfall isn't caused by one dramatic revelation. Sometimes it's caused by 100 small doubts that slowly grow larger over time. But for me, the most heartbreaking possibility involves Willow's children. As a parent, there is nothing more precious than the relationship you have with your children. Everything else can be replaced. Jobs come and go, relationships change, money can be earned again. But when trust is damaged within a family, the wounds can last forever. That's why I believe Drew may eventually realize that the most effective way to hurt Willow isn't through legal consequences at all. It may be through creating circumstances that threaten her role as a mother. If questions arise about her judgment, her decisions, or the secrets she has been hiding, it could trigger a chain of events that places her relationship with her children under intense scrutiny. Even the possibility of losing time with her children would be enough to devastate Willow emotionally. Drew understands that. He knows exactly where her greatest vulnerabilities are, and that's what makes him potentially dangerous. Another thing I can't ignore is the emotional transformation Drew may undergo after all of this. Right now, many people are focused on what Willow and Nina are doing, but eventually the spotlight will shift back to Drew himself. When he has time to process everything, when the shock fades and the anger settles in, he may become more determined than ever. In many soap storylines, the most dangerous villain isn't the person acting recklessly. It's the person who becomes patient. A patient Drew could be far more threatening than an impulsive Drew. Instead of lashing out immediately, he could spend weeks or months building the perfect revenge plan. He could gather information. He could manipulate situations from behind the scenes. He could allow Willow to believe she has escaped consequences before pulling the rug out from under her when she least expects it. Those are the kinds of story twists that General Hospital loves to deliver. Just when a character starts feeling safe, everything falls apart. That's exactly why I don't think Willow should celebrate yet. In my opinion, Drew's revenge story is only beginning. Whether it arrives through damaged relationships, career destruction, family turmoil, or a carefully planned campaign to expose Willow's weaknesses, I have little doubt that he will eventually strike back. The real question isn't whether Drew wants revenge. The real question is how far he is willing to go once he decides that making Willow suffer matters more than protecting himself. And if that day comes, Willow may discover that avoiding prison was the easy part. Surviving Drew's retaliation could be a far more difficult challenge.